Welcome to this video. Today, I'd like to discuss Lucifer. We all know Lucifer from the Bible, but what about his history? Where did he come from? And how did he become who he is? Well, tonight, why don't we discuss this? I've taken some notes, and I'm going to read off my notes to you. And some things that I've come across that I thought were very, very interesting. Okay. Now, what's interesting about these notes is that they align with both demonology and angelology, but they also apply to astrology. They apply to numerology as well, which is very, very interesting in itself. So, now we know from the biblical point of view that in Isaiah 14:12, the verse says, "How thou hast fallen, Lucifer, son of the morning." Okay. Now, why did it say that? Son of the morning. Okay. Well, we're going to get into this. And I think this is going to be good for a lot of people because we're going to discuss this from a wide range of topics, from Luciferian Satanism to angelology, demonology, and all these others that I just named off. So, where to begin? Well, let's talk about Luciferianism first. We'll talk a little bit about what is going on today within occultism. First of all, we all know about Michael W. Ford's work, especially his work within the Luciferian path. The adversarial Bible is one of, well, let's just say one of my favorites to go to when it comes to Luciferianism, but also on topics of Lucifer and Lilith. Okay. Now, the way he points his path out is that every deity is nothing more than a mask to basically to be pointed out for whatever topic is your goal or your aim. For an example, Satan is the dark side of things. Think of him as the waning moon versus the waxing moon, which would be Lucifer, bearer of light. Okay. Now, these two entities are considered the same being. And in actuality, this is actually a Christian thought form. How do I know this? Because I spent 7 years studying Christianity from Baptist to Catholicism to Apostolic, Pentecostal, both Southern and Northern aspects of Baptist. Okay. But I've also studied it from the Quran, the Jewish Bible, and most importantly, the Hebrew Bible. Okay. Which is one of the main Bibles that a lot of these other groups have sprung up around. Okay. So, and don't take my word for it. Go out and do your own studies on this, and you'll see exactly what I mean. Now, every Christian from the Judeo-Christian Society will tell you that any and all beings that are considered to be demonic today is nothing more than Satan. I kid you not. Every minister I've talked to, every Christian follower that I've talked with and had conversations with. I've even had 6 months of what they refer to as Bible study with a Jehovah Witness that could not show me one thing that he preached within the Bible. Okay. And yet I showed him exactly where each thing that he mentioned was in what book, what chapter, and what verse. Okay. And that's because I did my own study, my own research. Okay. But it goes further than that. You can go into, like I said, Luciferianism by Michael W. Ford, and you'll see that each one of these is a mask. Doesn't matter if it's Belial, doesn't matter if it's Azazel, doesn't matter if it's Lucifer or Satan. It is a mask. Therefore, it is a representation of mankind, your own personal gratification, or your personal issues or agendas in this world. This is what in sorcery is commonly referred to as self-deification. Okay? Self-deification is a man-made god. Okay? Think of atheistic Satanists, for an example. There is no God. There is no devil. I am my own God. Therefore, why would you practice black magic? Are you going to worship yourself? In fact, if you are your own God, does that make for 7 billion gods? 7 billion Satanists? You see what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. So when you dig deeper, then you start getting into the actual roots. In demonolatry, Lucifer has been known to be the witch father. He has been known to be a prince. But more than that, when you get into angelology, he is known as an archangel. Okay? Lucifer as an archangel is known as the morning star. He is the one who supposedly fell, according to a second century bishop who wrote and compared demons with the original seven sins. Lucifer obviously fell from pride, so therefore his sin was pride. He was prideful, which is why he was cast out of heaven, because he would not bow down to a man of clay. Now, if we go into the Quran, you see the story of Iblis, where he questioned and said, why should I bow down to a man of clay? I am a being of fire. I was created out of fire. Therefore, why should I bow down to a man of clay? And left to forge his own kingdom. Okay, instead of being thrown out of heaven. All right. So now you kind of get that overall picture here. Now, Lucifer has also been referred to as the Lord of the Underworld. Okay. Doesn't matter if it's Satan, Lucifer, or Samael. Most grimoires over the last 1,000 years, about 95 to 97% of all grimoires, Lucifer is the leader of the underworld. But yet, if you go back to Sanskrit, specifically that of the Dead Sea Scrolls, you will see the duality in the scroll of Amram, where the sons and daughters of darkness are led by Belial. Okay, so right there you have another name. The only doctrine that literally describes Samael as being the leader of the underworld is the grimoire of Appin, also known as the Red Book of Appin. It was basically a grimoire written by the scribe of Vlad the Impaler, also known today as Dracula or Dracula. Okay, so again, you're seeing how things have changed over the centuries. But let's get into Donald Tyson's work. Let's get into Simon's work. But most importantly, let's get into the Mad Arab. Okay. Now you're probably wondering, why am I going into the Necromine icon? Well, I want to read you some things from from taking some notes from just the indoctrination of it, or the initiation of just the first opening salvo of that book, the Necromyicon. Okay. Number one, it talks about Inki and Marduk being the elder gods. Lemashta, the she fiend, okay, otherwise known as Lilith. Okay. Azag Toth, the dark magician. This could be Mephistopheles, okay, the trickster, the illusionist, okay. Marduk, the brother, Inanna, the sister, Anna, or Anu, I should say, the elder god or supreme god or Lord. Okay, think of today's Jesus Christ or Jehovah. Okay, Allah. Okay, Yazad. These are all names for a supreme god. Okay, but then let's get into the old geography of, say, for an example, the routes, the old names, the old countries, the old civilizations and the way they think. Okay. Ganzir was originally the city of Ur, as in U R, the letter U and R. Okay. Ur. Okay. What's interesting here is that in Mesopotamia, also known as Mishu, the how should I say, it was also known as the city of Ngaa. Okay. Now, personally, I wouldn't even know where to begin to even pronounce that. Is it like Nga, for an example? The god of the heathens. Okay, which is kind of interesting because the Mad Arab was supposedly coming from what was called the village of Bet Darandia, Randan. Okay. Now, what's interesting here is now I'm going to get into something that the actual history. The Megan text speaks of Queen of the Outside. Now, I'm going to fill in the blanks here on how you actually come into this. Okay. Part of this is going to be coming from the Atlantean Necromyicon as well. Part of it is also going to be an Enochian. You can, if those of you who are not familiar with Enochian languages or the Enochian alphabet, look up Dr. John Dee and his friend and fellow consort, Edward Kelly, who was an illusionist. Okay. Now, you can also look into the Satanic Bible by Anton Sandalave. There's been countless authors who have discussed and actually come up with their own variation of the Enochian keys. So you can actually find that out. It's also in the Demonic Bible by Turks Whose Edge. Awesome book. I do recommend that one, especially if you're into demonolatry, especially through invocations and evocations. Now, as I said earlier, the Mad Arab. Okay, so the term "mad," meaning your god in Enochian language, or AR, that, AB, daughter of light. Basically, when you put them together, the Mad Arab is meaning your god, that daughter of light, meaning Ishtar or Inanna. Okay. Now, the astral body, the initiation process of gate walking or the gates of the Necromyicon, which you could find on page 146, speaks mostly to the Kundalini and the chakras. Okay, many artists, many practitioners speak of the chakras and the Kundalini as being you have to open them to become more sensitive to the other realms, the other dimensions, the other planes of existence, especially that of the spiritual planes. Okay. And a lot of this is spoken of widely, from witchcraft to shamanism to Satanism to even Christianity in itself. Okay. So you can actually look that up for yourself. It takes like a 2 second Google search to actually Google the term intercession, intermediate prayer, okay, or what do they call that? Intercessory prayer is what they refer to it as, or the spiritual planes of existence. Now, you got to understand that a lot of these cultures literally date back to the languages or the cross languages of Aramaic, Arabic, Hebrew, Phoenician, and Syriac languages. Okay. Bet, Beth, Ba, as in Beh, and they means house, and most Semitic languages. In Akkadian, both Beth is also relevant in this case because of the fact that the spellings are so similar. It's much in the same way as the pronunciations. Now, you remember what I said about the mad Arab in his village? Okay. Now, Durabia is conjoined in both and within two words or phrases. Number one, Durabia. Dur in Acadia or Akkadian means to dwell or just plain dwell, the place of dwelling. Rabia, a female given name, means creation or conception, basically to create. All right. Now, what's interesting here is that it also means saint, a female saint, Sufi, Rabia, Bezru, which means spring. Therefore, Bet Darabia means house where life dwells. Okay. Now, Shabetu is relative to the months of both February and January. Okay. Or January and February, I should say, because this is actually the zodiac signs, which is now we're getting into astrology. Okay. And right here is a pivotal icon that we want to pay attention to. Okay. Because not only is this the month or the era of Aquarius, but it's the zodiac Aquarius. Okay. And you can look Aquarius up within zodiacs for yourself. That way you can get a much broader spectrum of what Aquarius is within the zodiac signs. In the Babylonian calendar or zodiac Aquarius, Shabbatu means month of rain. Okay. Later in Hebrew, Shabbatu means also to cease, as in Sabbath. Okay. Now we're getting into the Sabbaths. Now let's take a look at some of the omens here. The omens. Severe. What is that? The science deified. Um, defined by Richard Olson. Okay, this is actually a book as well, and what's interesting about this book here is his viewpoints on certain topics not only align with Simon's research into the Mad Arab, specifically within the Necromyicon, but also into demonology, angelology, the omens in itself, but also the times of the ages. And one of this particular passage, which I'm about to read for you, reminds me a lot of Herbert Locklear's work, specifically. And I'm not going to get into that book. It's basically a lot of complicated things, but his work is very unique because he sticks to biblical omens, but at the same time it's kind of like he holds a newspaper in one hand and the Bible in the other. That's the best way I can describe his work to you. And in this case, I want to read this to you. If on the 15th day of the month of Shabbatu, Venus disappeared in the west, remaining absent in the sky 3 days. And on the 18th day of the month of Shabbatu, Venus appeared in the east. Okay? There will be catastrophes of kings. A dad will bring rain. Subterranean water. King will send greeting to king. Okay. Now, during the introduction to the Necromyicon, just before you get into the main working, it literally says the Mad Arab began his journey on the 19th day of Shabbatu, relative to the omens. Babylonians assigned to Venus rising in the east. Mesopotamian history, these predictions of Venus was viewed by the entrails of sacrificial animals, then advanced into astrology, or how should I say these? The movement of the stars. Okay, so right there you're seeing how omens, animal sacrificing, man-made things going into the spiritual or the astrology aspects. Okay, but also within the formula, how should I say this? The formulations of the advancements of the arts in spiritualism. Okay. Now, what's interesting here to note is that Venus is also a Roman deity. It is a feminine archetype. Now, you remember in Anna or Isis, Ishtar, Ereshkigal, Diana. Okay, these are all pagan and Wiccan deities, especially the female ones. Okay, much in the same way as Hecate. Okay. Now, what's interesting to also note is that the Roman deitas Lucifer, aka Morning Star, remember 14:12 in the book of Isaiah. How thou hast fallen, Lucifer, son of the morning. Okay. Now, what rises in the morning? That would be Venus. Okay. So you see where this plays into effect. Again, you have the omens of it. On Sabbatu the 15th and ending on Shabbatu the 18th, political or natural events we can predict to respect, or I should say to repeat, really. Now, what's interesting here is that Azag Belia, the black robes of thieves, the three symbols are actually color coded now. Okay, and these are, you can see these for yourself within Simon's Necromyicon. Think of it as, how should I say this? Witchcraft, necromancy, sigilliums, basically black magic in itself, and how all these things came into being. Now, the pentagram, man known as Ara, Arra, also known as Or, as in the city of Or, powers of the elder gods is what it represents, or the covenant of the elder gods, I should say. The covenant. Remember that Jehovah supposedly flooded the entire earth to wash away all the sins of man. Okay, because the man was so evil that due to the corruption of the angels having relations with the daughters of men. This is in the book of Enoch, but it is also associated with the scroll of Amram. It is also associated with Genesis chapter 6, verses 1 through 5, or 1 through 6, depending on the translation and the type of Bible that you have, okay, or that you can get your hands on. Now, and he swore that he would never flood the earth again, which is why in the book of Revelation, it is basically the scorching. It turns into fire, okay? Now, the second one is more of a sigil of the key of powers known as Agga, Agga. And this is the resemblance of the powers of the gods. Okay. Now, the last one is another sigil that is mostly surrounding the runes. Okay. And when I say runes, I mean alphabet letters. Okay. Which can also be compared to numerology. And this is the sigil of the watcher called Bandar, also known as the projection of necromancy. Okay, and it goes into a little bit of a prayer or summoning type stuff. And what's interesting here is that blood sorcery is considered food for the spirits, otherwise known as chiromancy. Blood sacrifices, bloodletting, the athame. Okay, and a lot of the doctrines, a lot of the grimoires out there speak to the movement of the sword or the athame, peering in, say, for an example, the four cardinal directions, waving the athame around in a, say, for example, a pentagram, be it verted or inverted. Okay, perhaps some kind of arcane movement. Okay, such as giving the sign of the horns. Okay, these all play into effect in this particular aspect. But blood is also considered the keys to both life and death. Think of it as the life force, or the keys to the opening of the gates, the keys to give back to the deities, the offerings, okay, the bloodletting, okay, the animal sacrifice. This is why every type of spiritual religion out there has actually practiced some form of human or animal sacrifice. For an example, in the Bible, God supposedly told Abraham, or Abram at the time, to sacrifice his own son because he believed that his son mattered more to Abraham than he did to Abraham. Okay, so it was that test of loyalty. Okay, and again, the test in trials when we get into, say, for example, the Aztecs. Okay, they used to rip the hearts out of the beating hearts out of the chests of sacrificing, specifically that of human sacrificing. Okay, and gave it to the sun god Inti. Okay, but you can also go into voodooism. You can go into hoodooism. You can go into Satanism, Palo Mayumbi, Quimbanda. Quimbanda today is considered to be one of the most bloodiest religions out there. And they actually rival Umbanda, which is very similar in practice, which is very interesting in itself. Now, what's interesting here, the rock splitting, aka earthquakes, ascension magic, Cthulhu. Okay. Now, on the last page of my notes here, I actually drew. Well, before I do that, I'm going to show you these three symbols. Let's see if I can get them focused for you. Notice right here the pentagram, and then the two runes. These could be classified as runes or alphabets. Okay. But they can also be classified as gateways, portals. Think of it as the pentagram is a symbolization of man. The middle one represents earth, and then the last one or the bottom one represents the gods. Okay. Think of it as a phone number. Okay. What is the first thing you do when you go to dial somebody? Number one, you have the area code. Okay. Or I should say the province code, which is, say, for an example, let's say, for an example, you're from Little Rock, California, Little Rock, Arizona. Okay. Or you have 501 would be the regional code, and then you have the area code, which would be like 965. Okay. And then you have the 4 digits. Okay. Same exact method applies. Okay. You have the area code, you have the province or district code, and then you have your actual number. Okay. So when you're doing rituals, it all aligns here. And then you have what is called the main seal. And you'll notice, I kind of drew this. Unfortunately, I kind of made an extra line here that didn't need to be there. And I didn't realize that until after the fact. And I've actually drawn this like 3 times, so it was kind of funny. But my point is this. When we talk about Lucifer, we can trace him all the way back to Azazel. Okay. Azazel is known as the ancient darkness, and his spelling of his name is actually the oldest translated adversarial name that is even pronounceable to the original. Now, there's a lot of authors out there that have literally spent their lives researching and trying to establish a satanic, how should I say this? A satanic existence, I guess you could say, throughout history in one form or another. For an example, when we think of the Dark Lord himself, we have Azazel, okay? Baal. We have Marduk. We have Leviathan, Astaroth, Satan, Lucifer, all the way up to Leviathan, and nowadays we have Satan. Okay? Each name is meant for a specific thing. So when we get into any form of sorcery, you really want to know what you're talking about. And I thought this video would be pretty cool because of the fact a lot of people don't understand how a lot of things have been made man-made rather than spiritual. Now, in witchcraft, there's an author by the name of Raymond Buckland. He wrote a book called Witchcraft from the Inside Out, and he actually traced what he referred to as his lineage or his craft lineage back to the Paleolithic era, where rituals began with a hula hoop and a spear. Okay? Whereas in demonology or angelology, everything started with, say, for an example, a Big Bang theory. Okay? And this is just modern day science. Okay? The Big Bang theory, where the universe exploded, particles of of good and, light and dark and good and evil, whatever, spread out. Okay? Forever expanding and then kind of shrinking depending on whatever mood the scientists are in. Now, my point is this: every deity has a history. The Bible only goes back as far as the Canaanites. But if you go back to the Canaanite era, you can actually take the Lord, Baal, and find out who gave birth to him. Now, what's interesting to note here is that before the Canaanites were known as Canaanites, they were known as the Chaldeans. Now, the Chaldeans, on the other hand, they were the first major culture to master sailing at night. They utilized maps, they utilized the ley lines, and they utilized stones, otherwise known as the equinoxes and the Sabbaths. Okay? They could tell the seasons, the 4 seasons, by the way the sun traveled across the sky, from where it rose and where it set. Okay? Now, the god of the Phoenicians was known as Dagon, one of the 4 sub-princes or archfiends who had an offspring known as Baal, aka Lord. Okay? Now, in Satanism, Baal is the closest thing to Lucifer out of the 9 great kings of the Goetia. And a lot of people don't even realize this, that when you look at how the 9 kings came to be, from where you can break them down from influence to knowledge to the arts, okay? Break them down into 3s. E.A. Coetting did this. Very impressive knowledge. When you break it down and you end up seeing what each one of these beings is capable of, then you can actually get a better understanding of their ranking system. S. Connolly Reeser wrote about the colors, this number 7. Now, you got to remember that in ancient times, there were 7 planets, not 9. There were 7 colors, 7 gods, the gods of old. Some depictions today say that there are 11 lords. Some religious factions or philosophical books, such as the Necronomicon, which started out with the Mad Arab, went into Lovecraft, went into Simon, and then into Donald Tyson's work, has 3 to 4 different outlooks on what this particular work is. And just like that, you have to understand that each religious sect has their own adversities, their own system of working. And the one thing that my brother Brian and I have in common is that the purest things out there for magic would be that of the Cabal. Okay? But when it comes to Satanism and demonolatry, we have to go with the Tentatio Diabolus by Myrmidon Pontifex Maximus, the works by Vocalacus Aureax, which is the book of the Divine Black Flame of Satan. Okay, now these 2 individuals are from the Cathedral of the Black Goat. Their work is completely and utterly unique, much in the same way as the Red Book of Appin, okay, or that of the Munich manuscripts, okay. So number 1, you have to know your history. You have to know mythology, astrology, numerology, okay. These major things play a huge part in just about every culture that there is out there. Every belief structure, there is good versus evil, light versus dark, and there is warfare. Now, the one thing that I liked about both Donald Tyson's work, but also that of Simon's, is Simon basically looked at it as a gateway through the universe, whereas Tyson utilized it as different species being conquered by what was known as the time travelers. But the one story all three of these people had in common between Simon, Tyson, and the Mad Arab was, think of it like this. You had two gods, two factions going to war. The solar system, where Earth is dead center. Think of it as the vacuum of space in that section that is like a vortex, so loud that you can't hear yourself think. Now I'm going to bring you right back into Genesis chapter 1 and 2. And God made the spirit of man in his image. That's 127. Chapter 2, verse 16. And he made that man flesh. Right there you have the spiritual versus the physical. But then he made the mate in chapter 3, verse 16 through 22, where he removed a rib and created Eve. Adam and Lilith, or Samael and Lilith, Satan and Lilith, the concubine versus the god. But a lot of people don't take into consideration this aspect. The macrocosm, known as the big God, versus that of the microcosm, the little God. Started out with Michael W. Ford's work, the masks, the atheistic Satanists of the Church of Satan. I am God, I am Satan. Each one of these deities is a mask that we put on to live our lives, to achieve our goals. But then you have those who are true believers, like the traditionalists, the spiritualists, who believe in the macrocosm. But like the Mad Arab, like that of the multiverse, you have the solar system, the solar deities, or the solar beliefs. You have the universal belief system, but then you have the multiverse. Most people do not get past the solar because they lack the ambition to seek out further truth. They lack the understanding of how to progress past that point and actually become more. As black magicians, as sorcerers, of course, every time we step out to share our knowledge, to share what we've learned, we are putting on what Anton Szandor LaVey so firmly called the bad guy badge, the badge of the adversarial doctrine, as Michael W. Ford called it. And the right-wing fundamentalists, the church, would be the first ones to stand up and raise hell, claiming that we are of the devil, because we dared to challenge their ruling. We dared to question. Again, let's look at Satan. Today in Hebrew, Satan means, and I quote, opposer. He is the accuser. In Islam, he is known as the opposer. In Judaism, it's a whole nother story. The tempter. But when it comes right down to it, Satan is not Lucifer. Satan is a Grigori, a watcher angel. So how can Satan and Lucifer be one and the same? The answer is they cannot. Archangel versus Grigori. Two different classes of angels. Do your homework, and you'll see this. Do your homework, and don't be afraid to step out into the light. Don't be afraid to step out of your coven and go into other traditions, other styles. Doesn't matter if it's shamanism going into Satanism, Satanism going into Christianity, Christianity going into, say, for example, voodoo. Hell, a lot of today's traditions, such as voodooism, hoodooism, Santa Morte, La Santa Morte, Santeria, Quimbanda, Umbanda, and even Palo Mayambi. A lot of their deities are based off Catholicism. Santa Morte is just known as Saint Death, the Holy Death. But how is she robed? Where have we seen this female archetype? Let's go back into Catholicism. Mary, mother of Jesus. Oops, did I just burst your bubble? My bad. Okay, same exact thing. It's just traditions building off traditions, man-made traditions that stretch from Africa through the French quarters, all the way into Latin America. Okay, both South America, Central America, and North America. Where have we seen the Ugan? That would be the Loa, be it the LOA or the LWE, or I should say the LWA, really. Three different traditions have three different spellings of just these intermediary gods to the main gods. Kind of like the demigods to the main gods. Holy Spirit to Yahweh. It's just tradition playing on tradition. Man-made beliefs. But if you want to get into actual practice, know your history. Know your mythology. And learn to step out of your own way to get in touch with these beings. Learn from them. Grow with them. Build a relationship with them. I can tell you by firsthand experience that when I was 5 years old, Lucifer appeared to me himself. I didn't start working with him in these beings until I was 11 years old. I'm now 39 years old. I've been practicing as a career black magician for 28 years. I've literally forged myself in sorceries, into the knowledge, into the practices. I work with these beings. I conjure them daily, sometimes every other day or at least about twice a week. But I study daily. I read daily. I commune and I greet them daily. I acknowledge them because I've known what they've done in my life. So forget what you've been told Go out and do your own research. Do your own research. Practice for yourself, not for somebody else. But let go of established beliefs and do your own homework. Let yourself go. Learn, grow, mature. Best thing you can do for yourself. All right? So that's the end of this video. I will be touching more on Lucifer in another video down the road. Probably about not tomorrow. Most likely it'll be Wednesday afternoon, if not Wednesday evening, sometime. All right. So with that said, this Dark Sorcerer is out. Enjoy.